Opposition, the Right Honourable Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in his comments on disabled people? And like the Prime Minister, can I start with the fantastic news about the licensing of a vaccine? This pandemic has caused so much grief and so much loss, but we're now a big step closer to the end of the tunnel. And like the Prime Minister, can I express my thanks, those of everyone in these benches and across the House, to all the scientists who've worked on this and to everybody who's taken part in the trials. Delivering a vaccine fairly, quickly and safely will now be the next major challenge facing the country, and whatever our differences across this House, we've all a duty to play our part in this national effort and to reassure the public about the safety of the vaccine. Mr Speaker, this morning a priority list has been published for the first phase of the rollout. We understand that around 800,000 doses will soon be available, and that's good news. Because of the 2 doses that will be required, that means 400,000 people can be vaccinated in the first batch. So can the Prime Minister tell the House who does he expect to receive the vaccine next week?
Prime Minister.
I'm grateful to the right honourable gentleman for his point about the rollout, and let me perhaps just update the House on what the JCVI has concluded so far. And the priority list will be residents in a care home for older adults and their carers to stop transmission. All those 80 years of age and older. Frontline health care and social care workers, then all those of 75 years of age and over, then all those of 70 years of age and over, the clinically extremely vulnerable individuals, and then a list that I'm sure the House will want to study closely, but I believe does represent common sense. I think it is very important at this stage for us all to recognise that this is unquestionably good news. It's very, very good news. But it is by no means the end of the story. It is not the end of our national struggle against coronavirus. And that is why it's very important that the package of moderate but tough measures that the House voted for last night, the tiering system, is followed across the country, because that's how we will continue to beat the virus.
Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And the Prime Minister referenced the priority for the first phase, and as he said, the top 2 priority groups are residents in care homes for older adults and their carers, all those 80 years of age and over, and frontline health and social care workers. Now, I'm not criticising that list in the slightest, but it's obvious that that's more than 400,000 people, and the Prime Minister will understand how anxious people in those particular groups are after having sacrificed so much. So can the Prime Minister tell us the answer to the question that they're going to be asking this morning, which is, when does he expect that all people in those 2 top groups can expect to be vaccinated?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I think at this stage it is very, very important that people do not get their hopes up too soon about the speed with which we will be able to roll out this vaccine. It is beginning, as my right honourable friend the Health Secretary has said, from next week. We are expecting several million doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine before the end of the year. We will then be rolling it out as fast as we possibly can. But that's why I put so much emphasis, Mr Speaker, on the continuing importance of the tiering system of mass community testing at the same time as we go forward through these tough winter months, because we will need, at the same time as we roll out the vaccine, and he's right to ask about timetables, but as we roll out the vaccine over the next few weeks, Mr Speaker, we will need to keep that tough tiering and testing regimes in place.
Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I press the Prime Minister a bit further about the plan for care homes? And I do so because we all want this to work, because that top category is residents in care homes. And that will obviously be a huge concern for many people. This morning, the Welsh Government has already raised some serious practical problems about the delivery of vaccines into care homes. That's bearing in mind the temperatures at which the vaccines have to be stored. Now, the Prime Minister must know this is going to be a 4-nation problem, must be aware that this problem would arise. And obviously we all want to overcome this problem, and it's in that spirit that I asked the Prime Minister what plans has he put in place to address these particular problems of getting the vaccine safely and quickly into care homes, given the practical difficulties of doing so and the anxiety that those in care homes will have about getting it quickly.
Prime Minister.
Well, he is entirely right to raise the issue of care homes and the our ability to distribute this particular type of vaccine rapidly into care homes, because it does need to be kept at minus 70 degrees, as I think the House understands. So there are logistical challenges to be overcome to get vulnerable people the access to the vaccine that they need. We are working on it with all the devolved administrations in order to ensure that the NHS across the country is able, and it's the NHS that will be in the lead, is able to distribute it as fast and as sensibly as possible to the most vulnerable groups. But he's right to raise that particular logistical difficulty. That's why it's also important that we get the AstraZeneca vaccine, which we hope will also come on stream. And while he's paying tribute to those who have been involved in the vaccines, perhaps he could also pay tribute to the work of the Vaccine Task Force, which secured the deal with Pfizer and which he, I think, criticised only a few weeks ago.
Keir Starmer.
Well, I pay tribute to everybody who's got us this far, and we'll work with all of them to get us where we need to go next. This has to be something which we all pull together to deliver this as quickly and safely as possible over the next few months, and I've made that offer to the Prime Minister before, and I do it again. And it's really in that vein that I turn to the next question, which is public confidence in the vaccine, which is a real cause for concern, because that's going to be crucial to the success of getting this rolled out across the country, getting our economy back up and running. As the Prime Minister knows, we've got the highest regulatory and medical safety standards in the world, but it's really important we do everything possible to counter dangerous, frankly life-threatening disinformation about vaccines. We on this side have called for legislation to be introduced to clamp down on this, with financial penalties for companies that fail to act. So will the Prime Minister work with us on this and bring forward emergency legislation in the coming days, which I think the whole House would support?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are, of course, working to tackle all kinds of disinformation across the internet, and he's right to single out the anti-vaxxers and those who I think are totally wrong in their approach, and he's right to encourage take-up of vaccines across the country. And we'll be publishing a paper very shortly, Mr. Speaker, on online harms designed to tackle the very disinformation that he speaks of.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, can I also urge the Prime Minister, once the government has a communications plan for the vaccine, can he share it with the House so that we can all say the same thing in the same way to the country, and thus encourage as many people to take up the vaccine as possible? Now, the arrival of the vaccine is obviously wonderful news, but it will come too late to many who've lost their jobs already. And I want to turn to the collapse of the Arcadia Group and Debenhams in the last 48 hours. That's put 25,000 jobs at risk and obviously caused huge anxiety to many families at the worst possible time, and threatens to rip the heart out of many high streets in our towns and cities. So can the Prime Minister tell the House what is he going to do now to protect the jobs and the pensions of all those affected by these closures?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're looking at what we can do to protect all the jobs that are being lost currently across the country, and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Business, Enterprise and Skills, has written to the Insolvency Service to look at the conduct of the Arcadia directors, and we will be doing everything we can to restore the high streets of this country with our £1 billion High Streets Fund and the Levelling Up Fund, Mr. Speaker. But I must say, I think it is a bit much that the right honourable gentleman should attack the economic consequences of the fight against coronavirus, when last night neither he nor his troops could be bothered to vote for measures, sensible, balanced measures that would open up the economy and allow businesses to trade, Mr. Speaker. How can he attack the economic consequences of our battle against coronavirus when he won't even support measures to open up the economy?
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, when I abstain, I come to the House and explain. When the Prime Minister abstains, he runs away to Afghanistan and gives the taxpayer a £20,000 bill. Mr. Speaker, on the question of jobs, there are serious questions that need to be answered about the collapse of these businesses. And I don't want the Prime Minister to deflect from that and what it means for these many families, because this isn't an isolated incident. Over 200,000 retail jobs have been lost this year. That's 200,000 individuals and their families. 20,000 stores have been closed on our high street. And that's before the latest restrictions. Now, I suspect if we'd seen that scale of job losses in any other sector, there would have been much greater action already. So I urge the Prime Minister to take this seriously. Don't deflect. As well as providing emergency support, will the Prime Minister work with us, with the trade unions and the sector, to finally bring forward a comprehensive plan to save retail jobs and to provide the sector with the much greater support it needs through this crisis? These are real people, Prime Minister, with real jobs, this family, who are facing the sack. They really need to hear from you.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're of course supporting every job that we possibly can, as we're supporting every life and every livelihood, Mr. Speaker, with a £200 billion programme. But I'd take him more seriously, frankly, if he actually could be bothered to vote for a programme, a moderate programme, to keep the virus down and open up the economy, Mr. Speaker. And we're getting on with our programme, as I say, of rolling out the vaccine, of sensible tiering measures, in addition to which, Mr. Speaker, we are delivering 40 more hospitals and 20,000 more police officers. And he talks about abstention, Mr. Speaker. When it came to protecting our veterans from unfair prosecution, he chose to abstain. When it came to protecting the people of this country from coronavirus at this critical moment, he told his troops to abstain, Mr. Speaker. Captain Hindsight is rising rapidly up the ranks and has become General Indecision, Mr. Speaker. That's what's happening, I'm afraid, to the right honourable gentleman. He dithers, we get on with the job.